What if you really do owe the money or think you owe the money and you're sued for debt? Law 101. Brought to you by Kenneth Chabert at yourlegallagout.com. Your advantage if you're being sued by debt collectors. Sometimes people being sued on debt ask me what they should do if they really do owe the money. Is it morally right to use the techniques I provide to try to escape the debt? Or should you just pay it, or let the debt collectors get their judgment? For several reasons, I think you should fight the lawsuit. Here's the way the question usually has come up. You know you borrowed the money or used the credit card, a credit card, or one of your credit cards, although you may not be sure which one, and you figure you owe somebody something like the amount you're being sued for. It's a lot. That's all you really remember. Because, truth to tell, you haven't been watching the credit card statements all that carefully lately. You can't bear to look carefully, right? And after all, what's the difference between $1 and $10 if you can't pay it? Shouldn't you just either pay up or let them take a judgment now that they've got you hauled into court? Is it morally right to try to rely on the technicality that they can't show you documents that would legally prove that you owe them the money? Is it wrong to put them to the trouble of proving the case against you? They've got a computer readout of everything after all. Hey, let me answer that one for you right now, because you know these debts get bought and sold all the time, and the digital records, they're never destroyed. So they exist, so lots of people have the records. The only way you're going to know who has the right to sue you is by forcing it out of them through the legal process. This really is the way most of my clients used to present the question to me. Notice how vague it is as to the amount of money owed, or how exactly that money came to be owed. When your debts pile up out of control, they lose a sense of present-day reality. If someone asked you to open your wallet and hand them $25, you'd notice that for sure, wouldn't you? But when a credit card company, a bank, adds a $25 fee, you don't even look after the first few times. So most of my clients were very vague as to how much they really owed or why. But on the other hand, they were acutely aware of their moral obligation to pay. Notice how the debt collectors do everything they can to foster that kind of thinking? It gives them a tremendous advantage over you in the process. Well, think again. You should defend yourself, most definitely. The first reason you should defend yourself is the legal reason. We have an adversary system, and that means they are entitled to get from you only what they can take by beating it out of you. If you can stop them, you won't have to pay, and under our legal system, that means you shouldn't pay. As I have often pointed out, though, the other side of this issue is that if you really don't owe them anything, but they beat it out of you, you will have to pay. The winner wins, and the loser loses. You'll never hear the debt collectors complain about that. That doesn't outrage them at all. In fact, it's how they make their living. When they're doing it, it's just business. So in a way, that's the end of the answer. If you're being sued, it's the law of the jungle that will prevail. It's okay to win. The reason our system is designed the way it is that evidence is seldom absolute, and the facts and laws are rarely crystal clear. Our legal system requires you to stand up for yourself. It doesn't work if you don't. The FTC caught one company that it said had gotten 80% or more of its revenues from people who never owed them the money. And there are many other debt companies out there that have done the same. Again, that's just business. The debt collectors are out of control. That's the general situation, and now let's look at the question more specifically. What if they don't have the documents to prove that you owe them the money? Well, why not? Why don't they? It is certainly possible that the reason they don't have the documents is that somebody else, a person with the real right to sue you, has them, isn't it? So here's a question you should consider before you pay just anybody who claims you owe them money, even in court. Because remember, the debt collectors collect a lot of money in court from people who never owed it. What happens if you get sued on a debt by somebody you didn't owe, you pay it, and then get sued again? You may have to pay it twice, that's what. Can that possibly be right? It's a stick-up. You're not entirely without legal rights in that situation, but in reality, these will not always work. And if there's a judgment, it won't work. And many debt collectors are fly-by-night and may disappear with the money you wrongly gave them. And this, too, is justice, in a sense. Rough justice, as we call it. Because if the wrong company sues you, the company you really owe the money may not be aware of the suit. Should they lose their right to collect just because you were dumb enough to pay someone else? If you think so, you have just flunked Debt Law 101. No one will take care of you. You are the one expected to know who is owed the money or to insist on adequate proof of the debt. Fail in this and you may double pay. So here's a question. Just how much do you owe? Do you trust that they got it right? Debt collection companies routinely overcharge on fees, interest, etc. They're famous for it. The company suing you may well be suing you for much more than you ever owed. You've heard it a million times about other people. Do you think they aren't doing it to you just because a guy in an expensive suit is telling you you owe? He's never looked at the records. Don't be too trusting. And this is where that vague sense of how much you actually owe really hurts you. If you don't make them justify in court every cent that they're trying to collect, the odds are overwhelming that you will pay too much. Remember, nobody else is looking out for you. When you were a kid and asked your parents for something, did you always ask for exactly the thing you wanted and nothing more? Well, my kids learned pretty early in the game to ask for more so that they could negotiate a little bit and still get pretty much what they wanted. And that lesson has certainly not been wasted on the banks and credit card companies. This is the way lawyers act. The system is designed for people to take care of themselves, but if you don't, they'll eat your lunch. So what if you want to ignore everything I said above and want to pay, but you just can't? If you fight, you can probably get the debt collectors to work with you much more on the amounts and terms. This goes against the grain for most people, but remember that lawyers are fighters. I know from talking with lawyers for the debt collection companies that they will respect you much more if you put up a good fight than if you roll over. And if they respect you, they'll work with you much more. So defend yourself. You may not consider this video or anything I say in this or any video as legal advice. I can't give you legal advice, but as a former lawyer, I do know the legal process and debt law very well. So use what I say as a source of information and apply your own judgment to your case. To get more help on fighting debt collectors and their lawsuits, go to yourlegalegup.com. Get my litigation manual and forms. If you appreciate this video, please take a second and like it on YouTube, subscribe and friend me on YouTube, as these things will help others find my videos and begin to learn more about the debt litigation process. Defend yourself from the debt collectors.